Perfect. So today I am going to give you an introduction to BIM and also a little overview of the building safety case and the BIM requirements for a building safety case. I'll just start jumping in. A little bit about Calford Seaden. Calford Seaden have been around for many years, long before I existed, and we specialise in a number of areas, from architecture to building surveying to sustainability, and of course to BIM. I'm sure a lot of you have already worked with us, but you can find out more information about us on our website. A little bit about myself. My name is Varun, if you don't know that, and I head up the BIM team at Calford Seaden. I have over 10 years experience working in the BIM field, and my projects range from about 2 million to 1.1, 1.2 billion at the moment. My experience is very much design, construction, asset management focused, and I've worked in both the public and private sector. I also chair the UK BIM for Housing Association working group and their asset working group on top of that. And I am also co-lead of the UK BIM Alliance implementation team, as well as sitting on their executive team. These are just a couple of the clients that we're working with currently. You see that we've got an array of different type of clients that we work with. Some are to fulfil the building safety cases that are coming up, and some are implementing BIM and on BIM projects. We are one of only a handful of multidisciplinary firms across the country to be accredited by Lloyd's Register. We're BIM Level 2 accredited for Tier 1 consultant, and Lloyd's Register accreditation is known for being probably the most thorough and toughest accreditation to achieve. It's very much focused on being able to use the BIM standards throughout an office. So regardless of whether it's just on a project, it's about implementing them standards throughout the way you work and the processes you work internally. And we do pride ourselves on the fact that we've achieved that. So what is BIM? So many times people will talk to you about saying they know what BIM is. They do BIM all the time because they do Revit. BIM is not really about Revit. Revit is just a tool for 3D modelling. BIM is actually known for building information modelling and management. The best way to think of BIM is it is a digital way of designing and constructing and operating a building virtually. The key to BIM is information, and best way I remember BIM is better information management, because really what you are doing is creating a collaborative method where you have one single source of truth and an audit trail of all information that's ever used on an asset. There are many different levels of BIM, 4 currently used within the UK. Level 0 is starting to fade away, which is more indicated at 2D hand drawings, whereas level 1 is kind of where the industry is at the moment. And level 1 looks at 2D drawings that are done by design teams separately, with bits of 2D coordination. There might be a 3D model involved for marketing purposes or planning purposes, but that's probably as far as that 3D model goes. There's not a lot of communication between design teams, where you are only really getting involved at DTMs. There's not really that many coordination meetings, and there's not really that information sharing. Level 2 is where we all work in 3D tools such as Revit to create building information models. And what that allows us to do is have a greater coordination, because we can share these models and actually link them into models that we already use, which allows us to use stuff like clash detection to then be able to work out what's going on with the building, be able to identify any issues that could be caused earlier. From there, you can also do stuff like 5D quantity surveying, so working out the exact quantities of material that are going to be used on site, and get a very, very accurate cost of what the project will cost you. The next level is level 3. There are only a handful of companies that are able to do level 3 at the moment, And level 3 is focused very much on a BIM model, but a single BIM model. So that would be all design disciplines and services such as quantity surveying, all working on one BIM model itself, and being able to extract all the information required for the client and handing one single model over to the client at the end. There are issues with level 3. If you're not working in a multidisciplinary firm, it's very hard to do, especially when you look at PI issues. So what are the benefits of BIM? Well, from an outset, you get improved visualizations. What that means is you're actually able to understand the building better, you're able to visualize it better, you're able to make more informed decisions. What we also find is, with the fact that we're all working in 3D, we're all collaborating, there is better design coordination and collaboration. People are sharing models bi-weekly, they're asking questions of what formats are we sharing in, or what levels are certain floors, to make sure that they're bringing the models in the correct space. All this leads to better quality of design and safer buildings that are designed and ended up building. And what that also means is there's just better communication. Using tools such as clash detection, it means that we can identify issues that are happening prior to going on site and constructing. And it means that we have less time delays on site. We also have less material wastage, and therefore we start to reduce costs, and because of that we get better cost efficiencies. It also means that there are fewer claims because we're able to identify all risks beforehand using stuff like 4D programming, where you're able to identify exactly what's going to happen and almost predict a full program of how this building will be put up. It is quite important to ensuring that we're getting the right information across at all times. So this is the current industry approach from a lot of my clients. So this was a lot of the information they were sending back to me about why they are focusing on BIM currently. And some of this may relate to yourselves, and it may be that actually this speaks a lot of truth. But we seem to get a lot of clients saying they can't open the files that they already have for existing assets because they're in the wrong format, or O&M manuals are in the wrong language, or it's in an email and there is some information there, but they just don't know which email, and they've got 2,000, 3,000 emails to go through, so they just can't find that information. All of this means that, yes, there can be information there. We don't know how up-to-date it is, but when we're looking at assets, we need to have the most up-to-date information at all time. Otherwise, it creates issues such as, can we create a safe building for people to be living in? So one of the other areas that we look at is how we actually deliver projects. So again, this was taken from clients and how they felt the design and build process works for them, and how they actually feel currently in the industry and how we are traditionally working. And very much it's a case of, as a client, they have a limited design scope, so all that they're trying to visualize and trying to create is not really met, and that's partly, they're not being able to translate exactly what they require, and part of it is, at construction we'll bring on a contractor and we'll discuss value engineering where we'll be able to get these benefits. However, we do find that when that comes on room stage 4, value engineering soon becomes additional costs, additional claims for works, and money being spent by the client that they didn't really have in the first place. Clients also find that when the building comes to defects period and is in operation, they don't really get a lot of information back at the end of defects, and it's that contractor has that's yours, get out of here as fast as possible and let's get on to the next scheme. With BIM, it makes you very accountable, therefore it's a very different way of working, and you'll see the need for digital transformation in the next slide. So after the tragedy of Grenfell, the Hackett report was commissioned, and The Hackett report identified the need for something called the golden thread of information and a single source of truth. And the best way to explain what the golden thread of information is if we were to take a car, if your car went in for servicing, the computer that would pick up all the information about the serial number on your car would be able to tell you every garage you've ever had your MOT and servicing done. It's a bit of the same in the building. We want to be able to take our components within a building and tell you when they've been maintained, when assets have been maintained, when things have been looked at, have they been serviced correctly, what parts have been changed. The Hackett report identified that need, that one single place where we would be able to find that information, and that is from a BIM model. After the Hackett report was commissioned, Building for Safer Future came about, and we've had 2 consultations so far, which I've advised in, and as part of that, BIM has been mandated. It is going to be required on all residential assets that are 18 metres plus or 6 stories plus, and from that you're going to be required to produce something called a building safety case. Now, the building safety case is, as I said, mandatory, and that's going to be mandatory on all existing assets as well as new build assets. So it's very, very important that we're able to identify what assets and what information we have currently, and where there's going to be a block and where we need to fulfill that information. What's required for a building safety case is a digital set of information. That digital set of information needs to comprise of 2D digital drawings in a format that is able to be utilised by the client. Now, that could be something like AutoCAD, that could be something like a PDF. On all new buildings, they will also require a 3D building information model, which can be changed into an asset information model. An asset information model is basically all the information available. So when you click on a component such as a boiler, you'd be able to see all the serial numbers and everything else. It's not to say that you're going to use that information, but it's that it's available for you. The other area that you're going to need to have is a COBie database. A COBie database is a database of all components and all attributes to them components in one single space, and that is your single source of truth. This then gets verified and checked by the building safety regulator. On new builds, it's prior to handover. On existing buildings, it's part of their audit. And there has to be a digital audit trail of everything within the asset, and everything fire related within the asset. And the biggest change will be the fact that owners are going to be responsible and held accountable for it. So once you own that asset, it's your responsibility to make sure it's up to date. And these audits could take place every year, they could take place every 4 years, but you need to be able to show, however far back they ask for, this audit. So how would you go about producing that? Well, there are some key documents that you need in your organisation before you can even go about doing this. One of those is the OIRs, which is known as the Organisation Information Requirements. It basically states this is what the organisation requirements are for BIM, this is why we're doing it, and this is our vision that we're setting out. You then need to have your AIRs, which is known as your Asset Information Requirements. This basically defines all the components and information the asset team require, and that information is then used for your EIRs. Your EIRs are something called the Employer Information Requirements or Exchange Information Requirements, depending on what standards we're using. And basically they set out exactly what needs to be handed over from suppliers to the client at the end of a project. And the BEP, which is known as the BIM Execution Plan or Information Delivery Plan, again depending on the standards you use, are an answer back to the Employer Information Requirements. And they state, this is, as a supplier, this is how we're going to be able to create the COBie database, the BIM model, to whatever level of information and level of detail that you require, so that it's actually going to pass an audit. The other area is the COBie database, which the template that's created for COBie tends to fit into the asset information requirements because it's dependent on what the asset information requirements state. And basically this labels out all the components and what information they would want to see. So if we take a database, it might be that we want to see a boiler, and in that boiler we want to see when it was installed, when the warranty start date was, what the serial number is, or if we take, say, a sprinkler, it'd be the same information, how often it needs to be serviced and everything else. And that information then can link into an asset system such as Apex or Keystone. Whilst we also send out information such as the EIRs at tender, there is another area that we need to have, and that is making sure teams have the correct capability. So capability assessments are available that we would send out at the same time to measure whether the team that we're going to employ are actually capable enough to deliver BIM. So some of the services that we actually look at and we work with and do are the BIM consultancy and implementation. So we develop for a lot of our clients their OIRs, EIRs, AIRs, and COBE strategies. Now, we also act as information managers, where we sit with client side, almost as BIM EAs, advising on exactly everything BIM, when things need to go out for tender, what information is required, helping the procurement team to get that information out, marking tenders that come back for the BIM side, and ensuring that everything that is given to the client is validated so that it would pass its building safety audit. We also have design and development teams, so a lot of our clients are asking us to go back and look at their existing stock, and when we're going back and looking at their existing stock, we've got our own internal design teams, building services teams, building surveying teams that are able to go and carry out the full survey, get all this information, compile it, and produce a BIM model for it, along with the COBE database that needs to be handed over for the client to be compliant. So all of this is available, and we're able to even use that in asset management and continue to do stock condition surveys every year with BIM. We actually have a team developed just for that. So currently some of the projects we're actually working on will just be shown, and then after that we'll have some questions. So we're working currently on Clapham Park, which is obviously quite a big project. We've been working as information managers for Metropolitan, as well as working on implementation of BIM within the full Metropolitan organisation. Just another one, the shredded wheat factory. Again, this is not only just a redevelopment, but it's also new build and existing in one. So there are quite a lot of hurdles to cross, but it's a very interesting project, and it's very interesting how we actually utilise BIM on here. The Ashmore estate. Now, although this doesn't hit the 6 stories requirement for building safety case, building safety case is only at is phase 1 currently, which is 6 stories. The aim is that within 2 years that will drop down to phase 2. Phase 2 is where you will hit 4 stories and 11 metres. So a lot of our clients are in a position where they've just decided that any new builds that they do, they're just going to get everything done in it, because if phase 1 and 2 are for those, we don't know what phase 3 might state. Another one is West Thorpe, and then Edith Summerskill, which is a complete revamp. Again, this is going to be for a building safety case. Thank you very much for listening. I'm sure there'll be questions, so